things we don't want to look at. When you can look at almost any potentiality and embrace it, you see, what we get afraid of is what we won't embrace, what we won't entertain. For instance, oh my God, I'll lose my job and I'll end up, on the street. Oh, that'll be terrible. I can't possibly live with that. And then if you really look at it and go, okay, could I do that? If I had to do that, could I do that? Could I embrace that? Really? Could I? And so often when you turn and embrace the things you're afraid of, all of a sudden you start to feel a relaxation. Your body goes like, well, yeah. Like you wouldn't want to, of course. You wouldn't choose that necessarily, but okay. So our mind threatens us with the future, doesn't it, often? It literally threatens you. It's like sometimes some minds are like a bully, just because they're afraid, that not because they have bad intentions, but the more we retract from what the mind threatens us with, the more fearful we are. The more we look at the mind almost and kind of go like, yeah, that could happen, couldn't it? Sure it could. That could happen. And you're just facing it. You're not making a big deal, but you're facing it. It takes so much of the charge out of it. Of course, I'm not a career counselor, and I don't, my thing isn't to counsel people on jobs and how to know which job to take and how to make the decision of whether to take a new job or leave an old job or whatever. That's not really, my thing. That's not really what I do, but I can adjust the underlying fears that often get triggered by it. And there, at the very beginning here, I feel caught in this highly uncomfortable state between totally letting go, very fearful and forced, and, the day-to-day of trying to survive. Really what you're letting go of is your avoidance. Think of it that way. We often think I'm trying to let go of the thing the thing that frightens me, the thing that I'm afraid of. I'm trying to let go of what's uncomfortable. Where what we're really looking at when we're letting go is more, can I let go of whatever I'm avoiding? You see? Not just letting go of what's uncomfortable, but can I let go, can I surrender, can I let go of avoiding what's uncomfortable? Can I surrender of trying to avoid my own fear? Can I surrender to that? Can I surrender my resistance to my fear? I mean, everybody would like to surrender their fear, but it doesn't work that way. The more you try to surrender your fear, the more fear has you. The more you surrender your avoidance of your fear, you're not wanting to feel it, then strangely, the less you feel it. Because it's the avoidance of fear, it's the fear of fear, that tightens the whole psychology up and the body up. So I would more look at, Craig, when you think of letting go or surrendering, you're surrendering your resistance to certain feelings, certain emotions, certain outcomes. And see how that feels in your body when you begin to surrender your resistance rather than trying to surrender any other thing in particular. Just see how it feels for you, because that's the test, right? As I said, go into your own being, see how that feels. Greg says he likes to listen to my, stuff that's on YouTube and Dharma Cafe and all that because it makes him feel, it reminds him that there is this sense of all is well. And that's true. That's not a philosophical statement. Sometimes I'll say that and people will think I'm talking philosophically and they'll say, well, don't you see the state of the world? Obviously everything isn't well. And I'm saying, that's not what I mean when I say all is well. Of course I see what's happening to the world. I keep very well informed, much more informed than most people think I do of what's happening in the world. But to say all is well doesn't mean that, all is, all the hate, ignorance, greed, violence, war, all of that is, I'm not saying, that's not a philosophical statement. It's a report from a particular way of perceiving existence. And I'm just saying from the deepest part of our being, the way it feels about what is that all is well. The way the experience we have when we are grounded in the ground of our being, we feel as though all is well. So it's a way of trying to communicate an experience that comes out of being grounded within the ground of our being. That doesn't mean that we don't do anything, that we don't help, that doesn't mean that we condone wars and violence and degradation of the earth and all the rest. It doesn't mean that we don't participate just because we feel that all is well. That would be a misreading of it. My experience is precisely those people, those beings, that really have touched into the experience, the absolute depth of wellness, that all is absolutely well. Those who, and I don't mean just for a moment or as an idea or as a concept to hide behind or justify or avoid life with, but I mean people who've really lived it. There's a paradox that the people who really feel that way, they really know the reality of all is well, they tend to be dedicated to the benefit of all of life. How can you explain that? In fact, that's one way I know that somebody's having an authentic experience of all is well, because then there's no hiding behind it, because they feel a great love and a great compassion and a great sympathy with the suffering of all beings. And all is well. And you feel a great sympathy, a great compassion, a great tenderness or fondness for all beings. So the false kind of all is well is you go, well, it's all God, and so, there's nothing to do and nobody to do it, and we don't need to do anything, and I'll just kind of, it's a cop-out. It's a way of making yourself comfortable in the face of a very complex life. That's how when someone comes to that with me, that's how I know it's not authentic. That's precisely how I know it's not authentic. Because when it is authentic, all is well breeds a kind of compassion, a kind of love, and a kind of caring. But it's a caring without worry, without anxiety. It's a love minus the anxiety. It's a deep concern without any worry. Again, whenever we come into the deepest truths, when you go to explain them or give words to them, they always sound so paradoxical. They always sound so contradictory. But in the direct perception of them, they're not contradictory at all. They're not even paradoxical at all. It only becomes paradoxical or contradictory when you start to speak about them. Because truth is so inclusive, so vast, and the experience of it is so inclusive that the experience of it, the perception of it, easily includes the sense that all is completely well, eternally well, no matter what happens, all is well. And that same perception breeds a sense of deep love, compassion, caring, and concern. You can't explain that. You just have to come and find out for yourself. So as I say, it's not a philosophical statement. It's an experiential perception. It frees you. And I think it's very, very important to know, because otherwise there's a lot of ways you can misinterpret a lot of teachings. If you don't experience them deeply for yourself, not only experience them deeply, but not hide behind the experience. Because you can have the experience that all is well, but your ego can actually hide behind it. Oh, all is well, therefore, I don't need to be involved in anything, because all is well. Oh, God's doing it, I don't need to participate at all. Why would I do that? I'll just watch it all. And you can hear a frightened little ego hiding behind the corner of all is wellness. You can just hear it, you can feel it, you can intuit it. It's there. Whereas when there's no ego in it, it's love. It's kind of a joyful love. It's caring. And as I always say, all these things, at least as far as I'm concerned, are experientially self-evident within your own being. You can find them all within yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. I just hope that you will take the time to look for yourself deeply, deeply, deeply. Because that's what transforms a human life. Let's see. This was one that was written in by Anne. And of course,